Well, today I want to talk to you about what bankruptcy is and what causes people to consider bankruptcy. Hi there, I'm Mark Nusz, and this is Westward Law, and I'm here to talk to you today about what bankruptcy is. It's a process that helps people that are suffering under tremendous debts the space that they need to be able to get out from under the pressures of bill collectors so that they can have time to make some plans to get out of this tremendous crushing debt. It gives them the protection of the U.S. federal bankruptcy courts while this is going on, and most people find that it is a process that can be beneficial and helps the person get through this with their sanity intact. In its simplest terms, it's relief for an individual or a family or even a small business owner. It's a federal system of laws, and as I said, it does have its own court system, so it's a federal bankruptcy court system. While the pressure is off after you file bankruptcy, it allows the creditors, or forces the creditors, I should say, to act fairly. So you don't want the creditors to be hounding people every day, calling at all hours. You don't want them acting in that fashion because it's no good for anybody. Bankruptcy allows for this process to be carried out in an orderly way, and it forces creditors to act fairly and not to contact or try to pressure the individual who is seeking protection. Tries not to force them to collect this debt before anybody else can get to the money. Otherwise, if we didn't have that, there would be pandemonium, and creditors would be after the debtor for anything they could pry out of their hands, and whoever was the fastest and the most aggressive would get their money first. And so that would not be the behavior that we would want as a society. But it does happen. So when that does start to happen, that's usually when people start thinking about what are my options. Is bankruptcy one of them? So why do people seek bankruptcy? You may not know a lot about it, and that's what you're out here looking for, is information about the process. But some of the common reasons why people seek bankruptcy is a major downturn in the economy has caused some sort of financial pressure on their family or on their individual situation. They've lost their job. They lost their job and found another one at a much reduced pay rate. So these are all things that cause financial pressures to people and make them have to consider how to make ends meet every month. And it's natural to, at some point, consider every option, including bankruptcy. Other things that happen, it's very common for people to have medical situations arise that drive huge amounts of medical bills. And if the insurance isn't there to cover that, these medical bills can rise into the tens of even $100,000 at times. And these are so large that people have no way of possibly paying these off, and they're forced to seek some sort of protection. Family issues. Sometimes if a family is splitting up, or if you're going from two incomes in the family to one income for whatever reason, this can drive tremendous financial pressure into the family, and people will be then looking for what they can do to reduce their debt load. Businesses fail. We encourage people in this country to start their own businesses, to think entrepreneurially, take risks, and when those don't pan out, sometimes businesses fail and they leave behind a huge amount of debt. And when that happens, we want to help people get out from under that. We want them to be able to start over. There could be any number of reasons why people take on large amounts of debt. They get under several credit cards, several car loans, a loan for the boat, whatever it may be. Our society is built on credit, and the retailers and the banks in this country succeed by the consumers consuming. And the more you can consume, the better off they are. And they understand that there's the risk that maybe people are taking on too much. In some cases, they maybe encourage people to take on too much, and they shouldn't do that. But it does happen, and people get under way more debt than they ever should have, and they can't see a way out. And there are times when you need to consider bankruptcy as the way to reduce that stress in your life. If it's just become so overwhelming to you that you're starting to see cracks in your ability to cope, you're not able to go to your job, you're at risk of losing your employment, your family is deteriorating, these are all reasons why people need to consider how to get out of this debt. And maybe bankruptcy is not right for everybody. In fact, it's not right for everyone. But if it's so bad that it's causing you issues in your life, then you ought to be considering it. Now, it doesn't mean that you will seek bankruptcy, but you should look into it. You should talk to a good bankruptcy attorney so that they can help you weigh your options, see if bankruptcy is something that's even an option for you. If so, which chapter? And that is an episode for another day. But these are all things that a good bankruptcy attorney will help you evaluate, and they can typically do that pretty early on in the process. They can explain to you down to every last detail what the pros and cons of the particular situation and a bankruptcy would bring for you. And you should learn about all the pros and cons so you can make an informed decision as to which course of action you want to take. But I always encourage people that if this is something that is on your mind, that you're now laboring under quite a bit of financial stress, that you put bankruptcy on the table as one of those options that you should think about. And you should evaluate it, and you should talk to a bankruptcy attorney fairly early in the process. I see people waiting and trying their hardest, and I understand that they just don't want to admit failure, and they don't want to wave the white flag of surrender. They keep charging ahead, and I understand that, and it's admirable. But most of the time, if you do that, you just end up depleting all of your assets. People lose their houses, people lose their cars, things that they may have wanted to keep. And if they had reacted a little sooner and spoke to an expert about that earlier in the process, they could have possibly kept some of those assets. One of the things that I always advise folks that are in these types of dire financial situations is do not use your retirement funds to try to save your house or those kinds of things. You should do that as a last resort, and probably not even then. But those are assets that if you were to file bankruptcy, they survive. They typically will survive the bankruptcy. They will still be there for you in your IRA or in your 401k. Don't drain those accounts, throwing it at your house, because then you'll just pay the price later and you won't have that money for your retirement. So that's my one tidbit of advice today. So bankruptcy is not something to be taken lightly. It is a big decision, but you should look at it as a tool that's in your toolbox. One of the things that you should be considering as a viable option for every American. It's something that we have laws about. It's something that we want people to do so that they can rejoin society, rejoin the economy with either a fresh start or a good plan on how you're going to pay something to your creditors that works for everybody. So it's not something that should be thought of as a stigma. It is a tool. It is a tool to be used when necessary. So again, my name is Mark Nusz. I'm a bankruptcy attorney in the North Puget Sound region of Washington State. I would be happy to talk to anybody. So if you would like to speak about this, you can call the office to schedule a initial consultation, which I do for free. My number is 360-899-5468, or you can go to the website. Thank you for joining me today in the inaugural edition of Bankruptcy TV, and look for more episodes in the future.